once you've gotten a file started, the easiest way to access style information is to look at the CSS Styles panel over here in the panel groups, which in the designer workspace is on the right side of your screen. Let's take a new site project. We'll create a new Dreamweaver site, and we'll call this KCC5. And we're not using a server technology. We're going to edit local copies. And we are not connecting to a remote server on this one. So we have a brand new fresh folder down in our files panel. And now let's make a new HTML file to put into it. To get started with styles, let's put some items on our screen that can be styled. I'm going to go to the Insert panel, and I'm going to minimize the File panel since I don't really need it right now, and give myself some room to expand here. And I'm going to draw a couple of absolutely positioned div elements on my screen. This serves a dual purpose. It gives me some items on my screen to add style to, and it also actually sets up some CSS right off the bat for me so that we can take a look at how this works. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to minimize the Insert panel here, and I'm going to, as you may have seen before, I double-clicked on the tab for my Files panel to minimize that, because what I really want to take a look at here is my CSS Styles panel. Now in the panel I have a choice of what styles I'm looking at. I can look at the styles that apply to whatever is currently selected. Right now I've selected this third div element on my screen, and these are the styles that apply to it currently. It's given absolute position, as we discussed in Chapter 3. It's got a top property of 16 pixels, meaning the top of the box here is 16 pixels from the top of the document. It's got a left property of 356 pixels, which means that's how far it is from the left side of the document. And it's 160 pixels wide, 174 pixels high, and it's got a z-index of 3, which means that if I were to drag it across these other two boxes, it would appear on top. So what I can do at any time is take a look at the properties that apply to this box, and I can change them. All this information here is part of the CSS Styles panel, and right down here I'm seeing all the properties that are available in CSS, and we see that under positioning these are the ones that have been set so far. There are several ways to look at these properties. You can look at a categorized list, and we'll be taking a look at some of these categories as we go through this chapter. I can list them all alphabetically if I'm pretty familiar with the names and purposes of the properties. I can just put them in an alphabetical list and search for them that way. Or this third view here, by selecting this button, I can show only those properties that have a value applied to them at the moment. So what I can do, for example, is if I want to add a property, I can scroll through a list of all the different CSS properties, and we'll be taking a look at what these mean. But let's say I wanted to set the background color. Now this property is added to the list, and I can use this color chip to pick a background color for this box. And it gets applied on this into the document there. Another way I can look at my existing properties is to click this button called All, and now this gives me a chance to take a look at where I have style information for this document stored. At the moment, once I created these three divs and positioned them, all the style information was stored in a style element. We see the HTML corner brackets here, and we'll be taking a look at code like that in the next chapter. But for right now, we see it as a style element, and this is where all my CSS information is. Right now, I have 3 groups of style rules. One applies to this first div here, the AP div 1. The next set applies to the second div here, and the third group applies to this here. And so we see that most of them pretty much have just some positioning properties set with height and width and position and that sort of thing. And only this third one here has a background color associated with it. If I ever want to get an overall view of the styles that I'm working with, I can click this All button and see where all the style associated with the document is.